the mix, we will have also discussion later. So.
Thank you very much. Yes, because I tried not to repeat what I said in the last 6 hours in the afternoon. It's not so easy, but maybe I should, because you mentioned always this early state when I was composing for theater, which is long ago. It was in the 70s and the early 80s. But I think what I'm doing now is a strong reflex on what I was attending to when I was composing for other directors, because I very much, and now I don't do that anymore since a long time. I compose for orchestras, Berlin Philharmonics, as well for chamber orchestras in Germany and in France and in England and whatever. And I conceive a lot of music theater plays in the last 10-15 years. And but coming back to the time you mentioned in the late 70s in Frankfurt, the reason why I do what I do now has, as I said, has very much to do with negative experiences actually in the structure of theater and the gravity of the priority of text-based theater. As I experienced it, I was sitting like 6 weeks or 2 months next to Klaus Peimann at the Burgtheater and doing 10 minutes of music to a 5-hour Shakespeare play. And I perceive very much theater as giving away the chances of all the media which are involved. So I made a big break. I made a big break in the 80s and went to the sound studios in which I could prepare and conceive my own world of a balance between sound, noise, text, and space on an acoustic stage. And later on, in the 90s, I dared to stage them really. But really means not that I consider theater as a method or instrument to make statements about reality. I very much consider theater as a reality itself, and I think as an art form which is one of the most complex art forms, especially when we talk about music theater. And tonight I would like to speak about a piece called Eraritiaritaka, which you can, when you don't understand, you can read it at least. We can spell it together, but it takes hours. So I found this word actually in the writings of Elias Canetti. You know that he did a lot of anthropological studies for his Mass and Power, and also in his notebooks, which I was reading carefully in the last 10 years. I found always, from time to time, this word Eraritiaritaka, and he found it in the language of the Aborigines. And it means something very beautiful. It means desperately looking for something which has been lost. That's Eraritiaritaka. And it doesn't mean that this piece, which I gave this name, is a sentimental, necessarily sentimental piece, but it has to do with the general perspective and with the careful chosen words by Elias Canetti, especially his notebooks, nearly only his notebooks, with very few exceptions. He wrote about 6, 7, 8 notebooks during his life, and you find very short aphorisms in it, very sharp observations on everything, on language, on politics, of course, on relationships, on animals, on human beings, on the possibility or impossibility to live together, on the relationship between the art forms, between music and text, between literature and opera. And he said in this notebooks at a certain point, he says the different arts should live together in the most chaste relationship. I had to look for this word chaste because I didn't know it. Keusch, as in Dutch. Should look for a most chaste relationship. And since I'm trying to aim for a separation of elements, as I could point out in the afternoon better with a lot of examples in our talk in the seminary, which comes, you might know this expression from the theatrical theories of Brecht, separation of elements. It was a very interesting comment to find in his studies, and I started to read over and over again his notebooks and tried to, and I was completely occupied or completely fascinated by these short writings, because whenever I opened this book, one of these books, I found other little words which I could use for my life or for my observations, and very often it happened also that one line had a different meaning for me when I opened it the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. So I tried very hard to conceive a piece because I wanted to share this experience which I had with these helpful notes. And I tried to conceive a theater piece which doesn't reduce this quality which you have when you read a book. And even Brecht tried to conceive a theater method which has the comfortable, the comfortness, you say comfortness? The comfort when you read. Because you have the freedom to make your own thoughts, you go back and forth, and you're not in a constant intensity and busy with following theater as it is in the classical dramatic way. So I was trying to find a way of sharing this experience with the notes, and that's probably something I would love to talk about. This afternoon, between the two seminaries, I saw on TV a short interview with Richard Serra, and he said, because there's a new Richard Serra exhibition starting in the MoMA, and he said, my steel monuments, they don't mean anything. It's just about the experience of the one who is going inside. I wouldn't go so far with my work, because I try a lot to be a little bit more precise about what I'm surrounding with my work. But when I speak about the separation of elements, I always also mean that we have an access, we have an individual access to what we are faced to from the stage, what we perceive in the audio from the point of the audience, and we might end up with complete different perspectives on the same topic. So let me explain a few things about this piece called Retyaka. It was premiered in 2004. It's my last piece I did. I keep on teaching too much in the meantime, so I didn't do a new piece since then. It was performed more than 100 times, quite in different continents. And it's with a string quartet, with one actor, one French actor. It's actually in French. And it follows only the words of Elias Canetti. And I don't know, whatever you want to call it, after we've been through this lecture, a theater piece maybe, or performance, or a music theater, or stage concert, or maybe even a live film, or whatever comes up. You can call it a play when we follow Gertrude Stein, who says anything that is not a story could be a play. Because what is the use of telling a story since there are so many, and everybody knows so many and tells so many, so why tell another one? That's very much like I consider theater. It's not storytelling, because we have that anywhere, everywhere. It's a more complex way of putting things together, of letting an audience having an experience, an artistic experience, in a live performance. I will speak a bit about the modes of perception in this piece. I will speak about the change of formats according to the separation of elements. And I think, being driven by this quote of Canetti, who says different arts should live together in a most chaste relationship, I think I tried to introduce the elements of theater one by each other, one after each other.